Hey guys, TrueGreen7 here, and since I'm in love with the idea of variant Pokemon and Sun and Moon's Alola Forms, nothing would make me happier than presenting you guys with my ideas for various alternate Pokemonster forms that we could get in Sun and Moon. Keep in mind that this list consists of Pokemon variants with consideration for the environment and geography of the Alola region. The following Pokemon were picked because I want to focus on alternate forms that would add or take away the original Pokemon's typing. So while I'd love to see a Litwick based on a Torch or a Ludicolo with a Hawaiian vibe, these ideas wouldn't change any of their types, so I opted to leave them out of this list. Drastic type changes that make no sense within Alola's geography also won't be considered, and I'll try my best to explain how these Pokemon adapted to their environment, and make it realistic but also imaginative. But of course, this list is just an assortment of Pokemon that I want to see, and the video is just for fun and entertainment. Nothing I say will affect the game, so just enjoy. And trust me, I wish everything I said was implemented into the game. Number 10. Ice Snorlax. So since Snorlax takes a lot of inspiration from bears, what with hibernation and all, I think creating a polar bear looking Alolan Snorlax that lives right here would make tremendous sense. Like imagine Snorlax's huge size was a metaphor for how much sense this makes. This white design helps him blend in with the snow, and perhaps they can make him fluffier because remember, it's never enough until you add some fluff. This color scheme was actually inspired by a Pokemon side episode in which magical Snorlax snowmen come to life, so it would be a nice nod to this Christmas special. I can see a snowman Snorlax in our near future. Number 9. Fire Diglettz. Of course Dugtrio gets a fire form too, but we're gonna focus on Diglettz cause they're way cuter. So I imagine that with the presence of volcanoes in Alola, there would be some volcanic activity. That's a safe assumption, right? Now what if Diglettz were to be digging around volcanoes that were constantly active? Like this one, cause excuse me ma'am, your volcano seems to be leaking. So I think that it would make sense that the Diglettz in that area would adapt to digging in lava, over thousands of years of course, and slowly become Fire Diglettz. Perhaps I created this form just because I like saying Fire Diglettz. Fire Diglettz, get your Fire Diglettz, only $9.99. Now with optional fire. Number 8. Water Dark Sandiles. So we all know that the Sandile line comes from Unova, and they basically only stay in the Route 4 desert because they need the heat to regulate their body temperature, and any place else in Unova isn't hot enough. So what if the Unovans, who are sick and tired of having evil crocodile crooks around their houses, brought over some Sandiles to Alola and dropped them in this desert, right here. But because of Sandile's rebellious nature, it doesn't want to stay in this enclosed sandy area and just walks to the nearby beach. Eventually the population stays there and adapts to the water because the rest of Alola has tropical weather that can regulate their cold-blooded body temperature. Over time, they end up looking like this and have access to water-type attacks. Cool, right? Number 7. Water Hippodongs. Now I actually see this happening, because in the real world, hippos are always around water, so a water Hippowdon won't be the most far-fetched Pokemon on this list. Unless Farfetch'd is on this list, but it isn't. Hippowdon is, and those holes could totally act like blowholes that whales have. In fact, did you know that the closest living relatives to the hippopotamus are whales and dolphins? Yeah, so these things shooting out water is totally backed up by science. You can't argue with science, guys. Number 6. Water Fairy Milotic. So if Mega Milotic won't be happening, then we might as well just pull all those Mega Milotic designs and take some of those aspects to make a bigger and more beautiful Milotic. But you may be asking, Ron, how do we make a Milotic more beautiful? It already maxed out its beauty. So much beauty can't go into one single creature, it's inhumane. So how about we just make it a little bigger, give it a tropical tint, and add more spots? It won't necessarily make it prettier, but it will make it look realistically divergent from the original design. The Hoenn Milotic lives in rivers, so it'll be smaller than an oceanic Milotic like this one. Number 5. Fireground Swine. So apparently the Alola Exeggutor could be the original species of Exeggutor, and the ones from Kanto are descendants from the Alolan ones. So what if Swinub were originally from Alola as well, and lived in the desert? Slowly over time, they climbed this mountain, and the ones that stayed there adapted to the cold weather. The Ice Swinub became an invasive species, so they were moved to Johto, and the Fireground Swinub remain in Alola. I gave the Fire Swinub a yellow patch that indicates that they're related to Tepigs, who are also fire piglets. Number 4. Pure Water Crawdont. So we know a few scientific things about Crawdont's family. First, that Corphish were brought into Hoenn from a foreign land and soon became invasive species, and as they evolved, they became aggressive and attacked all other Pokemon in the water. Crawdon's star design on its head makes it look like a Sharpedo from a distance, so other animals fear it even more. So you know where I'm going with this. Maybe Corphish are from Alola, and in their natural habitat, they don't become aggressive and never evolve into dark types. So Crawdons and Alola look more like Corphish and don't mimic Sharpedo's design. They're also more vibrant and happier in general. Number 3. Grass Sudowoodos. We can go two routes with this and even use existing Mega Sudowoodo concept art. So Sudowoodo is based on petrified wood, basically a tree that becomes rock over time. We can theorize that maybe Sudowoodo were originally animated tree Pokemon, and the ones that petrified due to volcanic activity were more suited to live around lava, but became super allergic to water. Or the opposite, maybe originally Sudowoodos were formed by volcanic activity, but the ones that moved into the rainforest and marshes had to adapt to the water and slowly became grass types. Either way, in Alola we don't have Sudowoodo, we have Genuine Woodo. Yeah, that's a terrible name. Number 2. Dark Rattata and Raticates. Now this is supposedly gonna happen based on the Chinese leaks, and I put it on here because it would make total sense. You see, in the real world, mongooses, I'm so compelled to say mongoose. Anyway, mongooses were introduced to Hawaii to deal with all the rats around, and Yungoos were also brought to Alola to deal with some other Pokemon. I believe they were brought to deal with some nasty dark type Rattatas and Raticates. I made them dark furred and more scruffy. I even gave the Rattata a scar, cause scars are badass. And I applied some eyeshadow to Raticate because eyeshadow is also badass. And now for some quick honorable mentions that I wish could have been included. How about some water fairy seals and dugongs that live on the beach instead of on the ice? Poisonous blossoms, volcanic geodudes, fire and rock type magmars that have hardened, fighting alakazams that live on the beach, a ground ghost witch Dr. Marowak, and ice grass go-goats that are basically mountain goats. And number 1 is water type Growlithe and Arcanine. Now this is another potentially leaked Alola form, and I personally would have given it the Ice type, but for some reason there are already a lot of Ice versions of Kanto Pokemon. But I still want to see a blue Arcanine because that's without a doubt the coolest thing ever! Of course the design I have here isn't how I actually want it to look like, I'd rather it have curlier hair instead of this spiky fur. But that would take hours to design and it's not necessary to prove my point. The justification for their existence would be that they lived on this island, but as the volcano dried up, the ones that were able to create steam instead of fire could survive, and slowly they became water types. Now if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. Of course my birthday was yesterday, so you could leave a like for that too. But if you were anyways gonna leave a like, then subscribe as well. But if you're already subscribed, then you're simply the best person ever. How about following me on Facebook and Twitter while you're at it? And checking out these videos on the side for more top 10 Sun and Moon content and fact videos. In the meantime, I'll see you guys very soon.